This episode of the AI XR podcast is brought to you by Zapper, the folks behind Mattercraft, the leading visual development environment for building immersive 3D web experiences for mobile, headsets, and desktop. Mattercraft combines the power of a game engine with the flexibility of the web, and now features an AI assistant that helps you design, code, and debug in real time right in your browser. Whether you're a dev, designer, or just getting started, Mattercraft speeds up your workflow and brings your 3D ideas to life faster than ever. Start building smarter at mattercraft.io. Good morning, everybody. I'm Charlie Fink with Ted Chilowitz and Roni Abovitz for the AI XR podcast. It's Friday, September 26th, 2025. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Our guest today is Paul Travers. He is the founder and CEO of Vuzix. So Paul, this is his second time joining us. He was last with us in 2021. I noted that we had some 800 listeners to that episode. So it's nice to have him back now that we know what we're doing and there's a crowd here.
Yeah, so pretty interesting. And he's an OG, right? I mean,
hell yeah.
They're a long time in the biz and focused on enterprise and making their way in the world.
They were founded in the aughts. There are not too many makers of XR glasses that have been here for 20 years.
Survived this long. That is true.
Yeah, so I look forward to having Paul. Not a huge news week this week, although Roni and I, while we whittled away the time in the green room waiting for Ted to arrive, did talk a little bit more about MetaConnect. And so in a slow news week, it's probably worth talking about a little bit more.
So what were you guys chatting about?
Roni said, are we going to chat some more about MetaConnect? There's a lot to unpack there. And I said, well, we could, because it's a slow news week. Okay, and you said...
What I wanted to say last week, but I lost all internet in our area, was that basically after so many years and at least over $100 billion, I think everyone sort of agreed on that, there's been $100 billion US dollars put into Reality Labs, that we're basically at Google Glass again, not much improved, not that different from like Sergey jumping out of the plane. I mean, if you look at what the original Google Glass was, a tiny little display in one eye, like it's just very disappointing to me. Knowing how much you could do with that capital, where you really could be, the level of capability I've worked on and I've seen others go to, and I see what's out there, startups, like there's a startup I introduced to Ted that's doing amazing work, a handful of people that barely have any money, already beating any kind of visual quality you see on something like the MetaConnect, the Ray-Ban. So just like
Ray-Ban display.
Ray-Ban. Just like that is such a disappointment because it's 2025 and it's like we can do better.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm like, so much money being spent and the results against money seems to be just not making sense. And like I don't get it.
All right, so you went there.
I went there.
You went there. Let's wait. This is important, and maybe the most important conversation you and I have had on this podcast, Roni. What would have happened if you had that $100 billion 10 years ago? That's really what you're saying here. What's the vision? Come on. Magic Leap has $100 billion. Not $4 billion, $100 billion, and 10 years. What happens? Where are we in that science fiction story?
I think when you are a Meta or a Google or an Apple with so many other vast resources and compatibilities, I'll just tell you what I was expecting in 2025. One, an exquisite digital twin of like at least tier 1, tier 2 cities that was dynamic in real time. So you can go anywhere. It was like pre-meshed, pre-scanned, and any device. It would just be like beautifully there so that it's already a surface and detailed to... So that you could, in AR mode or VR mode, visit anywhere, be anywhere in exquisite detail. And when you look at a lot of the capabilities that are in the world right now, all those building blocks are there. The money spent is capable of having done that. So that's what's very confusing to me. Like, why hasn't this happened? We had a vision back in 2018. We were working with AT&T. This was the CEO at the time, who's a good friend of mine, a guy named John Donovan. We were going to basically build a digital twin of Dallas as an example of like a very high fidelity 5G plus, gigabit bandwidth, super mesh city that you can walk into Dallas And then Dallas would become this surface area for so many cool things. You could visit virtually, visit augmented, and it would be all devices, phones, tablets. You'd have like magic mirrors where you have like movie premieres and see a Godzilla walking down the street. And we did examples of this. We did examples of this on like fairly large lots, on studio lots. I don't know why that hasn't happened. Meta acquired companies that it could do this with. Google has Earth and Maps. And like, why haven't people gone there? Why are we back to a tiny little text box and so little imagination in the field? Like, I just am like a bit aghast. And I think anyone who loves this field, it's like we're in this age of the optics are actually really there. Ted has seen like things I've seen and you've seen, Charlie. Somewhere there's like multiple labs that have the optics that you need to go. The capability of building something very small and power efficient. Look at the latest iPhone Slim. You can do that. And like AI capabilities are also there. Why is this not happening? Like, what is the drag here? This didn't happen in phones. Like, phones actually have been on a very interesting cycle of getting to be great on a pace that we all expected XR to. And like, XR is still stuck, like Nokia 1994 mode. Like, what is going on there? I don't know. You guys might have an answer, but I'm just venting. Sorry, everybody. It's a Friday.
Well, all I can say, Ronnie, is at least with $100 billion, they kind of almost look like glasses now.
Well, I don't think they almost look like glasses. If you've seen them in the real, they are not as sleek as the regular
That's why I said
Meta
almost.
AI. Yeah, the Meta AI ones, the audio smart glasses are much closer to something that are difficult to detect from normal glasses. And of course, they're made by Ray-Ban and they look good and they feel good. Having not worn these others, I can't speak to that. I do think the monocular display, people are going to find even its intermittent use extremely annoying. That is not the way we see it.
And
feels
we knew that
very,
15 years ago.
It feels very abnormal. I wanted to talk about Neon. This app that is the #2 social app on Apple right now.
Yeah.
And it pays you to record your conversations and share them for data training, as data for training AI.
You are the product.
There's something so insidious about that just like is unbelievable.
So it basically will pay you like $200 a week if you talk on the phone a lot. So there are a lot of people, I think they're probably... half the people in this country are walking around thinking, I would like to have $800 more a month.
This is in Snow Crash. What did Neil call them? Like the gargoyles? Gargoyles would like go around and look at the world and like map it, but this is like a voice gargoyle. You are an input mechanism. So, we're just learning human speech from you. Thank you.
Wow.
And then goodbye at some point.
Wow. This is one I have to say I would not have thought of. And of course, Neil thought of it as a detail. So
no, but here's like there's a job, the gargoyles in Snow Crash, right? This is that. And I bet you someone there must have read it or been influenced by. By the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but the hyperscalers already do a version of this. What's kind of interesting is it's like a startup trying to do what like the big companies already do, where you sign an 8 million page EULA, you don't know what you're agreeing to or not. Now it's like an app. I would say good for them, but this doesn't seem good. This doesn't seem like this is going to lead to a good outcome for humanity. I don't know.
This could, though, change the business model for companies like VR Chat and Second Life. Yes. They could record everything that's said and everything that's typed, and they have a whole new line of business.
And every podcast ever recorded, right? I mean, here we are gabbing away. And
you're so true.
Sort of like a phone call between the three of us every week. And if they can scrape every podcast, I mean, think about what is the percentage of podcasts that actually make money versus the percentage of podcasts that are just out there in the world delivering podcasts, right? If you just take that and use that as your large language model basis.
Well, I mean, there is 60 minutes of data a week that we have. I mean, that's gotta be worth, if you multiply that by 265 shows, we're in the money.
Not just 265 shows. Think about the 265,000 shows around the world that get recorded every week by someone claiming they do a podcast, right?
I guess, well, first of all, for those of you who don't know, if you go into the settings, which are not easy to find on ChatGPT, they're under your profile picture on the bottom left. which again, very hard to find on ChatGPT. But then you can go into personalization and security and turn off the sharing of everything you do with ChatGPT, which I know it's a small thing, but I did it and it made me feel just a little better about training my replacement with my writing. So here's the other story that I wanted to bring up. Meta AI just announced a Vibes.
Yeah.
Get it? Vibes. And it's a news feed on their AI app. So I use their AI app primarily when I'm wearing my new Meta Oakleys, which are really nice, by the way. Super plug to Meta. Thank you for helping us broke-ass journalists. I like mine a lot, and I'm going to talk about it and review it. I think I just did.
Better than the Ray-Bans?
They're same-ish.
Okay.
I mean, they feel good. They look good. They're not too much bulkier than regular glasses. They're light. They feel good. So
The sound
I like
is better,
wearing
right?
them.
They're louder.
Yeah, their sound is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, they've gotten great at that. Whereas, Meta, the audio glasses 1.0 were meh, but these are really good. I mean, they've always felt great. Anyway, so you've got Meta AI now has a news feed of all AI generated animated images. They're like 6-second scenes, if you will. But you can comment on them, you can share them, you can remix them, you can put yourself in them. And, it's free. And there are two things I really like about this. One is the idea of socializing the idea of content being liquid, just casually, like any content in social media could be theoretically liquid. And the other thing is this idea of having a separate feed for AI content from your feed from the physical world and real people. I don't like in my news feed now that I don't know. I look at something, I'm like, is that a real picture? Is that a real video? Is this AI? It's a whole different conversation with the platform and the content. So I do think it needs to be identified, ideally separated, so that I can have a news feed which the images aren't generated by AI, at least at a minimum. And those should be separated, right? And it would take away a lot of the concerns about deep fakes and worrying, is this picture of a real boat or is that an actual boat?
Charlie, what's interesting is it feels very Snapchat-ish to me. It feels like this would be a Snap product, not a Meta product, for what it's doing and how it's doing it, trying to kind of build this social fabric that's kind of unique to their little brand of the lenses and the creation world and all that. So it's interesting that Meta's always trying to find their way into other people's sandboxes. It's kind of interesting to me.
The guest segment of the AI XR podcast is sponsored by the new Luma series of Vuzix XR glasses. Vuzix is the quiet giant of video smart glasses, preferred by gamers and #1 in U.S. sales. The expanded 52-degree field of view shows me a virtual 152-inch screen. For the best in mobile gaming and entertainment, go to luma.vuzix.com or Amazon and get yourself a pair. So Paul Travers, great to see you.
Charlie, it's good to be back.
You were last on the show in the fall of 2021. So here we are 4 years later. And since then, we've added a few more listeners. So it's like you're here for the first time.
Yeah, it feels like a little bit.
Well, it was deep in the midst of
too.
COVID back then, right? So it was a different time.
Yeah. Did you know Roni, by the way? Have you guys ever met?
I think it's our first time meeting.
In person, yes. But how can you not know Roni? So it's a pleasure to meet you, Roni.
And I've known of you for a while, so it's great meeting in almost real life.
Touché.
You guys have recently made a bunch of news, but before we talk about that, let's just talk a little bit for our listeners who have not been following Enterprise XR over the past 20 years. Let's just talk a little bit about what Vuzix is and, about the development of XR hardware in general. And then we can get into maybe some of the specifics and news that you guys have been making lately. Vuzix is the grandfather of all the XR companies at this point, right? Is there anybody who has been around?
Probably not anybody that's got as many arrows in the back and still in the game as Vuzix, I think. We have an interesting history. I mean, I could talk forever about it because it's my life, right? But in 1992, we introduced a product called the VFX1, which was a virtual reality headset. And actually, it was under a different company's brand, but it was my company. If you look it up on the web, you see it's this football helmet size thing with a flip-up visor, and it was the world's first consumer VR headset. It had 3 degree of freedom tracking, We had like 100 titles, first-person shooters, John Carmack stuff. I mean, it was really cool, and we probably sold $6 million worth of product. Back then, it was a lot. Our first quarter was pretty exciting. We partnered with a public company. They invested probably $12 million, shoestring budget, even for back then, but the product was really successful to start. We needed next-generation displays. We were way ahead of the game, and this other public company, we really needed access to more capital at the time. So they had their feelings of where we should be going, and I had mine. So I bought the company out and started Vuzix. So I personally have been in the wearable display space since 1992, lots of years.
One thing I have to say about Vuzix and you, do you know about a phenomenon called the Lindy Effect?
The Lindy Effect, that's new for me.
The Lindy Effect is a very interesting, like kind of like a Murphy's Law, but the longer something exists, the more likely it will continue to exist. And I think Vuzix longevity is a predictor that it will continue to exist. And I think it was about Lindy's delicatessen. The longer it was alive, the more likely it was to still be alive. So it's called like the Lindy Effect. But the interesting thing is like Vuzix is one of those companies that has survived many extinction events. I think this field has gone through like a dozen extinction events. So I think for me personally, and like I know our listeners, how is Vuzix have that ability to survive? It's almost like in my backyard, there's alligators. Alligators are still dinosaurs. Everything else didn't make it, but the alligator's thriving and in my backyard, eating raccoons and God knows what. How did Vuzix survive? What's the fitness potential you have in the genes of you and the company that has allowed it to keep going? And it might come all the way to the promised land. You know, at the current rate, there's going to be a moment where XR finally explodes, and I hope you guys are there. But what has allowed this to be true?
Well, this goes back to my original question of why enterprise, and is enterprise the Lindy Effect, per se?
I think enterprise is going to be a win. And in fact, if we look at what's happening right now, with AI especially coming into the fore, the activity and the number of opportunities that we're seeing is doing nothing but going up. And we've been clever about how we position our products. We started with this VR headset thing for the consumer space, right? We pivoted from there to the defense markets, trying to make lightweight things people could actually wear and use all day long. We felt early on in the game, if it was heavy, big, bulky, how could you give it to somebody in a warehouse and have them put in an 8-hour shift? And today, our products have gotten light enough and functional enough and solving specific problems in certain verticals that we're finally starting to see the liftoff happen. And again, you've seen it, it's taken 28 years, but we have companies like Nadro that have 1,000 systems in the field. They're used 24/7 in their pharmacy warehouses, and they're doing nothing but expanding. Amazon, same thing. They were buying 25 here, 50 there. We put them in a special case for them. They run their own software on it, the Chime version of remote support kinds of things and remote calls. And they're cranking up now. They're in distribution centers. They're starting to expand into all of their distribution centers. We've got orders for literally thousands of them now that are starting to come in from that one account. And they're looking at now moving it into their server farm areas where you can't afford to go down. If stuff stops working and your warehouse isn't working right, or the server farms go down and people's AI stop working, or their internet connections, it's problematic and you can lose so much money. So the devices solve those problems. We've pivoted along the way, but it's always been a pivot in the verticals that we were going after and trying to get this solution just right. I would say the other thing that we've never done is take venture capital. And I'm not against venture capital, don't get me wrong, but there's often timeline, event horizons. It happens by then or they're out, and it starts to push and make decisions at a corporate level that aren't necessarily in the long-term interest of the company.
The fact that you were able to get this far without venture, was it strategic or some public market things? Like, I'm sure a lot of folks are interested, how did you get this far and avoid VCs?
So we are a public company, right? Love it or leave it. That's what we are. But I will tell you that being a public company, if you have the right story and you're in the right place at the right time, everybody that's our shareholders, we have like 80,000 of them, many of them just believe in the future of this space. They see it's going to happen. And things like Meta, even though their most recent glasses aren't that big of a breakthrough, they do have displays in them. And they show that this space is starting to move. Charlie, we were talking earlier about the Blade. You're right. Maybe 5 years ago, we showed the Blade. And at CES, we had a just giant booth with the day in the life. And you'd put the glasses on, and you'd be sitting in front of your TV set, and the closed captioning would come up in Spanish, even though the hockey game was in English. And you're going down the hill, and it's telling you the directions to get to the bottom of the hill and how fast you're going. And these were experiences that happened on the glasses. Ordering an Uber through the glasses. We worked with Amazon back then, so Alexa would run in the glasses. You could talk to the glasses, and they would play your favorite music. All that stuff was 5 years ago. So it's not that revolutionary, but it's a big company. It's got a good brand behind it. It's not that bad looking, but the biggest problems this whole industry has had in the broader markets is the fashion forward, where people actually wear the dumb things. I mean, people spend hours trying to find a pair of glasses they like. This is a personal thing, right? They've got to be prescriptions, and they got to be lightweight. And so we have been pushing from the beginning in enterprise to make these lightweight, truly all-day wearable gizmos. And I think we finally reached that point at Vuzix where we can do that.
Do you recall what year you went public and what your market cap was then, and where it has sort of moved up and down across, you said almost 30 years? Is that right?
Yeah, we went public in 2009.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I'm
going to throw something out there that Ted and Charlie are going to yell at me, but I think we should kick off today on this podcast that Vuzix is the GameStop of XR. If you're a public company, couple $100 million market cap, it should be a $20 billion company. So it'd be interesting to think, like, you could be the home for everyone else. Like, you could roll up every other little startup in the field that's looking for a home. And because you're public, you could absorb them and your market cap would go up. And then suddenly there would be this, like, independent company taking on the big guys, but with more experience about what works and what doesn't than any other company.
The interesting thing about that, Roni, by the way, I really appreciate that thought. It sounds awesome.
I really think you're the GameStop of XR. So well, any traders,
let's take that valuation to $23 billion.
Let me say we have
Charlie called it $23 billion or bust.
Touche. Look, we have a very interesting short position in Vuzix right now also. There are people that have been betting against us. Honestly, I think it's anti-American.
Terrible.
I got to tell you something. When Mako was a public company, Mako Surgical, for a while we were the most shorted company on Wall Street, and I despised all those people. And when we finally got acquired, we destroyed the shorts. So let's do the same thing with Vuzix.
We're aligned to do that right now. The cool thing about the West Coast, all this activity around this space, it does nothing but generate that fervor, that understanding, that feeling like this is real. And shareholders like that, and they get in. And when they do, the shorts start to get to be sideways. And I would love to see a short squeeze in Vuzix. You were asking about what our shares were like over the years, and it's not been easy, quite frankly. I mean, we went public. We were supposed to raise $20 million. We only raised 10. I put a second mortgage on my house to help make payroll after we went public.
I think you're one of the great startup stories on this field. I tell founders that you have to be able to hang on to a piece of driftwood and just survive. Look at Jensen from NVIDIA. I mean, for like 20 years, he's like kind of hanging on, and now he's $1 trillion company. Like, it would be very amazing if Vuzix turned out to be the NVIDIA of the field, right? Let's make that happen, guys. Let's do that.
Well, I think there's going to be
I'll bet Paul thinks that's a great idea.
I do, of course. I believe there's going to be more than one winner. I believe Vuzix is going to be one of them. And I think, Roni, you're right. Vuzix with a $200 million market cap right now is ridiculous in this space.
It is. There are companies making humanoid robots that are losing tons of money, that just raised $1 billion at a $39 billion pre, that may never make a dollar. The fact that you've been in the field so long, have seen everything, have a sense of it. Like, the value in survivorship is undervalued by investors. And that's something people don't appreciate. Like, you would need a tiny fraction of what goes into Reality Labs to do something much, much better than what's happening at Reality Labs. because you have the wisdom and the experience and the scar tissue and the hundreds of arrows in your back that tell you what to do and what not to do. And I think people don't understand the value of what all that wisdom experience means.
And I got to say, Roni, if you look at the world of robotics today and warehousing or manufacturing of vehicles, let's say, a lot of people think a car is full of robots building these cars and stuff. And now, do you guys know what percentage of a car actually is built by a robot versus a human? Okay, the robots are welding the frames and they're painting. But 95% of the real work that goes into building a car and manufacturing it is done by humans. Now, the biggest forward momentum right now is not just robotics, it's cobotics, where humans are coexisting with robots and working together in systems. And the same thing is true in the warehouse today. Everybody's like, oh, automated warehouses, blah, blah. It's only the great big dogs that are putting in these in some cases, billion-dollar warehouses that are all robot-driven. The bulk of warehouses today are run by human beings. And if you look at what's happening in that space, augmenting the people that are doing the picking and getting them to be able to work alongside robots as part of the picking process, literally out to the 2030s, the fastest growing space is that. It's not robotics.
So Paul, I actually wholeheartedly agree with you. I have a fundamental question. You have part of the answer you're working on in the enterprise, but how do you bring AI systems that do not violate the IP and protection almost all companies want, right? That just takes down almost all players. But I think your systems become very valuable when you have some kind of AI system in them that is safe to use inside a company, that they realize like our data or will not be shipped somewhere, stolen, whatever. Like, are you working on your own? Are you partnering? Like, what's Vuzix thinking on this?
Yeah, well, first of all, we put enough processing power in our glasses that they can run small models and do more simple stuff in the glasses.
Like the Qualcomm type models?
Yes, right. Yep. And NVIDIA is a great partner with Vuzix in this regard. NVIDIA's got this Blueprint technology. It's designed to work in mobile, in edge, and private edge, so you can put servers in your warehouse or on your manufacturing plant floor, have the LLMs and all the models for the cars in that server, and nothing leaves the factory. Because you're right, I mean, these giant car companies, semiconductor companies, et cetera, they don't even want a camera on their plant floor. So if it gets there, it has to be certified, gone through the IT departments, and that's half the battle these days, is getting through all that. But we are working with companies like the NVIDIAs of the world. And in fact, NVIDIA, we're back and forth on a bunch of stuff with them these days. And there's a bunch of small startups that are building their own models around our smart glasses. And then there's larger players.
But you're agnostic. You allow people to tune or mod whatever AI components they want. You're not forcing them like Meta. You are forced to use a certain thing from them.
Yes.
With what you're doing, you're not forced.
Not only that, with Meta, you can't necessarily get full access to the cameras to do the things that you want to do. It has to go through all their tools, and it's very limited. I mean, they're not really designed for an enterprise play, right? They want to own the customer, and they want to own the data flow in and out of that customer. We, on the other hand, it's no problem. You walk into a BMW site, let's say, and they have got their own models that they're using within their plants. No problem. It will just run with our glasses. We're designed to be a kind of agnostic for.
So tell us about the for folks who may not be familiar, something like the Blade 2. I don't know, Charlie and Ted, if you guys have used it, but like, what's the experience of someone wearing the Blade 2?
I don't think it's different than the most recent Meta gizmo that they showed like a week or so ago.
Is the Blade still a binocular display?
The Blade is still monocular, but Charlie, come see us at CES.
I see you at CES every year for the past 15 years.
And it's a lot of fun, too. We have a bunch of stuff that we're working on with Qualcomm. There'll be maybe 3 or 4 different new pairs that we'll be showing there. We can talk a little bit more about Qualcomm because there's really 2 pieces of Vuzix business today. And then we also have some binocular, full-color things that look, they are sexy, man. They look every bit as good.
That's what I'm talking about
right now. Yes. And mics are built in, so you can do the AI kinds of things. We have versions of it with and without cameras because it's a platform. And we really have two kinds of businesses at Vuzix. One of them is the enterprise products group, and the other one is our waveguide business. Over the years, we've built waveguides for our own products. The good thing about that is we got to learn how to make waveguides that work in wearable devices. We've also developed all the manufacturing processes to make those waveguides inexpensively and in high volume. Quanta invested in Vuzix. They put $20 million into us. They just finished their last 5. The last 2 tranches, 5 and 5, were based upon hitting Vuzix's run rate goals and yield rate goals for the production floor that we have here in Rochester, New York. And that run rate is 1.5 million waveguides a year today. So you can come to Vuzix, and if you want them, if you want 10,000 in a week, that is not a problem for us to manufacture for you today.
What would you do if someone injected a lot of capital into your company? Like, you managed to make this work with like very thin amount of capital for this field, like an extremely thin. But if some investing group dropped $1 billion into Vuzix, would it make a difference? Would it be harmful? Would it be helpful?
We could go like hell on so many things. There's things we'd love to be doing more of that we only get to dabble right now that we would be going hell-bent for election on it. I mean, these waveguides, the way they're going to win is better efficiency, lighter weight, higher index. And we got really cool stuff in this regard, even all the way out to silicon carbide stuff happening that can be done in high volume, that doesn't require DirectX processes, so that you can make them at a really good price point.
Say that again. You have the ability to make silicon carbide waveguides?
We procure the silicon carbide substrates from others. But yes, Roni, we have processes that support silicon carbide waveguides.
The reason I'm making a big deal about that is like our friends at Meta with the $100 billion in tout that they could do silicon carbide as some massive differentiating feature. So here is a company with a micro infinitesimal of the funding and support, also able to deliver theoretically silicon carbide, which they haven't delivered yet either, right? I think they've shown one prototype that probably cost $100 million to make or something.
There's lots of challenges with direct etch on silicon carbide. The problem is you can't put a polymer on silicon carbide that's a 1.8 index polymer and expect to get 2.6 index performance out of the waveguide. It's stupid.
Well, and where our listeners might have a point of reference to this is the technology that the Orion glasses, they're very exotic, claim to be $10,000 a pair if they would ever sell them. And, they got some good buzz around them. I mean, Jensen used them. They got some other VIPs to put them on. And then this sort of moved downstream to the Ray-Ban vision glasses that have the tiny micro display as a sub $1,000 product.
They make a point that the bill of materials for those glasses was a couple of $1,000 for the pieces and parts, and the waveguides were $8,000. Silicon carbide waveguides they're expensive.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. The hardest bit is actually producing diffraction gratings on the surface of the silicon carbide or into the surface of the silicon carbide. Most people are direct etching and it causes all kinds of grief. Yields are low. There's a ton of things. I mean, silicon carbide is not out of the woods yet, but I believe it will happen. And you got to be able to produce silicon carbide waveguides in volume. And we have programs here at Vuzix that we're feeling very confident that we're going to be able to produce them at the same kind of run rates almost that we currently produce. And we have a small facility. It's only 13,000 square foot. It's probably 1/3 capacity. And today we can make, like I said, 1.5 million waveguides a year. And our yield rates had to be north of 80% for Quanta to put the next round of investment in. And they were well north of the 90s. We're right on track on our plant floor.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get into this field? Why are you doing what you do? You're very dedicated to it. What pulled you in this in the first place?
Roni, I don't like to lose. And maybe that comes across as the dedication. But and it's something my parents instilled in me, I think, that if you start something, finish it. So
there you go.
That said, my first business was making sound cards for the PC back in 1980s. You remember the FM synthesizers and Sound Blaster and the likes, when they were doing that stuff, we were making wavetable synthesis. And we built a piece of silicon, we licensed it all to Advanced Micro Devices. And I was like, man, this entrepreneur stuff I was young.
So
easy,
Paul,
man.
Paul, I'm going to bring up a TV show I'm curious that you've watched. I've mentioned it to our listeners a couple of times because you're right up the alley to watch this. And if you haven't, you should fire it up tonight. It's called Halt and Catch Fire. Does that, does that show ring a bell to you?
No.
Okay, so
you gotta watch it.
Look it up because you were in it building sound cards for PCs, and you would know, the evolution of Texas Instruments. It's a fictional based, but very much based on the true stories.
Right? Yeah, right, exactly.
Of the PC revolutions of the 80s and 90s, and you were in it. You 100% need to watch the show and then text us a week later and go, I can't stop watching it.
Actually, all our listeners, that is a great show about
Jane liked it, so you know that it is nerd proof.
Yeah, it's just a really, really well done effort in trying to make sense of that time. You're going to really dig it. And this leads me to my next sort of piece of the puzzle, because you mentioned in passing that you're based out of Rochester, New York, right? And Rochester,
you wanted to be close to Kodak.
Right.
One
well,
of the
Rochester
top 3 optics schools, right?
Yes, Ronnie makes the point about optics. Rochester has a really interesting sort of culture, a bit like Detroit, right? In terms of talk to us a little bit about why you're in Rochester, why you choose to stay in Rochester, and this kind of sub-innovation culture around Rochester. Because I've worked with a number of startups that happen to be in the optics world out of Rochester. So I think
but also RIT is there, right? RIT is like the
Institute of Technology.
One of the big 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the reason why I came here to begin with was because my wife and I, right out of college, got married, went to work for the U.S. government making tracking. I was making tracking systems for submarines, and she was doing some other stuff there, and my son came along. And Josie's like, I want to stay home. But the only way that's going to work is you make more money. So I had to leave the world of the military as a civilian, and Eastman Kodak hired me. And I worked in the research labs at Eastman Kodak for 5 years. And while I was there, and by the way, we were making charge coupled displays, CCD, digital cameras, 16 millimeter size format to replace film backs in a regular Fuji style 35 millimeter camera of the day. While we were there, I mean, these cameras were amazing, but it required a VAX, and it would take 5 minutes to read the image out of the damn thing. And it was only a megapixel camera, but so while I was there, I got to work in one of their entrepreneurial programs. We were making semiconductor cleaning equipment, and it was a lot of fun. And I was like, I like this whole business running kind of a thing. So when I realized that Eastman Kodak really wasn't serious about most of the work that I was doing for them, because it was all this digital camera work and film took its place, I left and started a business in my basement. The sound card company was first. Then I made a universal serial bus connectivity company that I sold to Belkin. At the time, USB was new, active cables with, semiconductor stuff in it was not something Belkin was used to. So I sold it to them. And then I fell in love with this whole idea of VR headsets and virtual worlds and, stepping out of this one and into the new one that was all computer generated. And I said, the only reason why NASA's paying $100,000 for a headset is because they're only making one-offs. If we could get the right display, we could make something consumers could buy. And I think the VFX one was only, at the time, that's a lot of money, but it was $695 compared to a $25,000 to $75,000 headset that the military guys or NASA was using. And so I was like, this could be a win, and we could be the beginnings of bringing this technology to the real world.
So at Kodak, did you work with Bruce Bayer? Did you know him? Were you connected to him?
Yeah, I didn't know Bruce, but I was in Building 81, which is where their semiconductor fab was. You walk across the street. Anyway, it was phenomenal. It was a fantastic place to work, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. It's just too bad that, it was a tough gig for Kodak. They were making so much money on film. You sell the film, you put $12.95 in your pocket.
Yeah.
You go process, you take pictures, you process 12 shots, 6 work, and you get another $15 for the processed film. Then you go do it again, and what'd you get? 6, 8 pictures out of it. And today, I got 5 cameras on my phone. They're upwards of 100 megapixels.
Yeah.
You could take real-time video on stuff that would take 5 minutes to read out of the backs in just for a frame. So it's a tough gig to try to compete with that for where they were. So they hang on to film. But anyway, so I left and I started these businesses, and optics in Rochester it's like its heart and soul.
Yep.
Eastman Kodak, Bausch Lomb, Xerox. These were all optics companies. And around Rochester, there's all these optics companies that came to life to support those companies. Well, nobody likes to give up. And so just because Eastman Kodak was going in a different direction and life changed, all these companies became something. There's a lot of wonderful startups and or reasonable sized companies that call Rochester their home. And at the same time, the universities and RIT have built programs around optics and technology, et cetera, to support it. So we're kind of like the West Coast, but focused more on optics and electronics around it. So it's a great place.
It's a good area for VCs, like under focused, you know.
Yeah. Well, Kodak is the classic example of the innovator's dilemma, right? They had the working business model from an age gone by that they didn't realize was an age gone by because they were still generating capital. And the world sort of realized what actually Kodak had invented, but couldn't figure out how to actually bring to life. It's a very interesting and sort of classic story of the innovator's dilemma. It's fascinating that you were involved in it.
They were so busy protecting their franchise that they were unable to innovate rapidly enough to compete.
And they literally built it all, and they didn't see.
And the irony is, it was happening. It was a car wreck happening in slow motion in front of the whole world.
They just couldn't see it.
They were the only ones who seemed to not be able to stop it.
Yeah.
Right.
Those little yellow boxes can be a very, deep lens of you can't get through it.
Well, I think Paul just described an incredible business plan. You can understand why they couldn't imagine life without it.
Yes. But if you think about it, right? You guys remember Kodak moments when you would be at Disney World and there's a Kodak sign up.
Now it's an Instagram moment.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Kodak should have been Facebook. Everybody made albums. Right. They have albums at home, and it all just fits to tell your home story, and that's how people share their pictures.
You know what the lesson is? A lot of companies have the answer to their future in their company, and they miss it.
This is a classic one, right? They thought they were in the picture business, in the business of making photographs, when in fact they were in the business of communication.
Look, it's not just them. Google let the entire team behind Attention is All You Need paper. They all left Google because no one at Google cared. Right. That paper led to the biggest competition Google's ever had in its life, from Microsoft and OpenAI and Anthropic. They're all related to that paper, and every single one of those researchers walked out the door and sucked hundreds of billions of dollars. So it's Kodak all over again. Google is the Kodak again for letting those people slip through their fingers.
And
at least trying to do something.
Which people are you talking about? I'm not following the myth to which you're referring.
The researchers who published the Attention is All You Need paper were all at Google. Google didn't care that they published it. It should have been IP. It wasn't, because they didn't care. And they let all those folks leave because they didn't want to fund them. And that paper and those people all left Google. It should have been patented. It should have been a new Google business. There would be no OpenAI. It was internal Google IP. They didn't care about
for those of you following along.
Walk out the door.
For those of you following along at home, here's what Wikipedia says. Attention is All You Need is a 2017 landmark research paper in machine learning authored by 8 scientists working at Google. The paper introduced new deep learning architecture known as the transformer, based on the attention mechanism proposed in 2019 by Bahadnow. It is considered foundational paper in modern artificial AI and a major contributor to the AI boom.
It's one of the big ones. Yeah. They didn't care about that paper. They didn't make it IP. They let it walk out the door, and they let all those guys walk out the door. They didn't fund them. They didn't care. And that resulted in a bunch of other companies that cared, who are now like huge rivals, creating pressure on potentially the demise of Google. Like OpenAI is challenging Google because they let that invention out the back door. But it wasn't done insidiously. They just didn't care about those people. They didn't care about the research.
You don't get it until you see it often, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that was Kodak, and now it's Google, and it just keeps repeating itself.
The cool thing about the smart glasses space is it's gone through that cycle of, I believe it, oh, it's not going to do it, it's not going to matter. I believe it, it's not going to matter. But there is just something that's unstoppable about the idea of connected glasses. And now
just
with
hang
AI,
on, you'll be Jensen.
Yeah, now with AI, it's a fait accompli in my mind. The fact that I believe it's the end of applications. The whole idea of having an APK on a phone, why the hell do you need it? Ask the glasses, I need an Uber out front, please. Okay, they'll be here in 5 minutes. If we're going to the destination that's here, right? This is what's in our address book. And you're not, again, this is an incredible shift that's about ready to happen. And the glasses can finally start to look like you actually want to wear them. And you can wear them for a full day without them hurting. And it's not about, although I do believe the finger of God, the finger of AI is going to be part of this with spatial compute and all of that. It'll happen. Roni, your vision with, whales jumping out of gymnasium floors, it's going to happen. It's coming. It's just taken longer than we all would have loved. So the smaller steps, the lighter weight gizmos, that's where Vuzix has been focused. And you can see it moving along. You can see our relationship with guys like Quanta. And you think about our market cap, back to your point earlier, Roni, $200 million. I mean, we were trading all the way up to like $33 a share 3 years ago or so. When we went through COVID, our revenues were really climbing fast because everybody needed remote support. And remote support was one of the easy button features that wearable glasses like ours would make and allow. And we raised like $100 million when we went through that process. But here we are today, only at 200 million. The whole cycle's starting again, only this time there's more of the world behind it than there ever was before. This wonderful invention of AI is going to facilitate the entire future coming together.
Well, Roni has said many times, AI is exactly what XR has been waiting for.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Yep.
So that's all the time we have, unfortunately, Paul. It's great to see you. Great to hang out with you. As with our best guests, this felt like it was way too short. I had so many questions that I wrote down, but I didn't ask them because we kept talking about more interesting things. So,
and we have our new GameStop, folks. Let's do this.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Vuzix says GameStop. I love that idea.
Guys, I'd love to come back. It would be a lot of fun. For those interested, we are a public company on the NASDAQ, and our stock symbol is VUZI. So anybody who's looking, it's really easy to find us.
Absolutely. Follow Vuzix, and we'll see you back here next week.
Thanks for your
Have a good one, everybody.
Thanks for your time, Paul.
Thank
Very
you.
interesting. Bye, everybody.